Well, hello and welcome to another fabulous night or day if you're in Australia, like I am, of Zwift racing. And I'm joined by Dave Towle tonight. Dave, we've had a brilliant start to the series so far. We've seen a points race and a team's time trial. After that, all of the teams have been seeded and the ranks are frozen. So now everyone knows where they belong. And our 6,000 plus competitors, well, they can get on with having some pretty exciting racing. So today we have America West and we have a points race. They're headed around the 2015 World Championship course from Richmond, Virginia. And Dave, it is a very, very tough course out there, 32 kilometres worth of very challenging roads.
Yeah, there is no question, Kate, when you look at this course, it really selects. Well, the way it plays out, the first lap, and we will be doing two laps out here for around a little under 35K. The selection gets made early, but then that last trip up 23rd really sets the table for a brutal run into the finish line. This course never disappoints. And as we jump in with our Women America's West first, this race is wide open, really enjoyable to watch the parity that we have out here. Certainly, we'll talk about the racers. We talk about the course. It's almost two courses in one, isn't it? When you look at it, each lap has about 10K of completely flat, and then all hell breaks loose.
Yeah, it's certainly a nasty course, not only to train on in Zwift, but certainly the WTRL racers have a lot on their hands tonight. Let's take a look at who is leading overall, because that will certainly play into today's strategy. So in the women's division, we'll take a look at that first, the women's A. ATP Racing Swarm and Revo's scores are both on 39 points, very tight at the top of the leaderboard there. Cryogen Mount Evans in third on 35. The BRT Doom Kittens, 32 points. Wattle Inc. on 31 points. Instafund La Prima, they're actually a road team out of Canada. They're on 31 points. The Revo Musketeers in seventh on 29 points. And then Penvelo WB on 28 points. So still a fairly tight leaderboard so far. And today we'll certainly mix that up a bit, I think. So let's take a look at the men, Dave.
Yeah, so this will be, again, after a couple of races, our Division 1B. Oh, here we go. Let me jump in with Division 1A there. Thank you, Nathan. Dirty Rascals Riot with 39 points. So that's a win and second when you look at our points table. It's the Gold Rush FW in second right now with 36 points. 33 points for Dutch Diesel Cycling Hayes. Costa Rica in fourth with 30. And then you can see tied with 28 points is OMG. They killed Kenny and Penn Velo A. It's Alto Velo Racing with 21 points. Evo Altibajos with 20 points in eighth. ANTHM with 17 points, and then Tag Cycling Racing Team, 7 points. That's our top 10 right now in Division 1. Division 2's got the Dirty Rascals Stampede sitting on top with 38 points. A scant 3 points behind would be the ATP Racing Krypton. 31 points right now for TFC Pickle Juice. And then we'll work our way down from 4th to 10th with Dutch Diesel Cycling Zeelbrekers. Then Penvelo B1. In 6th is Zwiffer Dusters. Dutch Diesel Cycling Slaken in 7th. Musette Le Crocodile in 8th. Dirty Rascals Pandalarium in 9th, and then Penvelo B2. That's your top 10 teams. We'll go to the C division now. Dirty Rascals Ambush, they're leading with 37. 32 points, has 3 teams deadlocked there with Deadpool SX Force, Dirty Rascals Grind, and Lightning Velo. Then you got Z-Sun Controllable in 5th, Dirty Rascals Affogato in 6th, Panda Candy Racing 7th, Wadi Inc. C3 in 8th, ZHQ The Rebels in 9th, and Aero Appaloosa rounding out our top 10. So, all right, that's the C's that we're looking at. Kate, I'm going to throw it back to you. We're out on Richmond. Anna Rogers, I tell you what, Kate, Anna Rogers and Barbara Fazzoli put on quite a show the last time we saw this scratch racing format. I would expect the exact same thing out here today, and maybe add in a few names like Cat Salthouse, maybe the ATP Swarm team. I'll talk to you, Kate. Let's just jump in and take a look at the riders who are going to make the race today.
Well, it was certainly an interesting for the riders. And in that first week, it was the Watopia flat route. I imagine, Dave, that tonight will be a little bit different for these riders. And the course is the biggest differential. So as we discussed, it's a 16.2 kilometre course. They do 2 laps around that. But within the course, it does break down. There's 4 intermediate sprints along the way, 2 in the first 10 kilometres, which are flat. And we know the more explosive riders will certainly rise to the top there. But then they have to challenge the Libby Hill climb and then the 23rd Street climb. Both of them are short, sharp climbs. Libby Hill kicks to over 15% going up a cobbled finish and a hairpin up to that KOM. Those intermediate sprints, Dave, they bring points. So 3, 2, 1 for the first 3 riders across the line. And then there's points for the first 29 riders at the finish. So there's a couple of different strategies the teams can play with here. Maybe they'll send some riders out to collect those intermediate points along the way. Each lap there's 4 plus at the finish line with a lap to go. Or perhaps they'll hold off a bit, try to hold some wheels, and just go for those sprint points at the finish.
I have to be honest with you, Kate, from what I've seen, and if I was directing a team, again, you have to look at the resources that you have at hand when you talk about directing, but it's trying to stack the top 10 for the finale because, again, as we've been racing now for a few weeks, I know a lot of people understand the scheme of how we're working the points and the tables, but basically each day we have bonus points available. Well, I should say half of the time. We do the team time trial that WTRL has made famous. Let's set that aside for right now. When you're looking at this racing, Kate, obviously, we have the bonuses that you were talking about. There's 8 of them. If you were to win every single one, it doesn't matter if it's one rider or riders on one team, you would end up with 24 points. That would be 8 times 3. Now, for the win, as you mentioned, it goes 29 deep. Well, the winner gets 40 points out here. So 35 per second. And you start working your way down, but it is really top heavy, that table. So if you can put 3 or 4 riders into the top 10, regardless of how you do collecting bonus points, you should be good to collect the top points for the day. And then just to make it a little more complicated, Kate, we take those points and add them up through 8 different races to find our championship team. And then the big prize at the end of all of this is the top 2 teams in the A's will advance up into the Premier League, which races on Monday, and they'll get in-game kit, which is really desirable. So, Kate, as I throw it back to you, these sprints come pretty quickly here. We'll be, as you said, flat here for the first 2. The next 2 aren't really sprints. They're more like Queens of the Mountain.
Well, there is a lot on the line for the teams because there is that carrot dangling that they can advance up to the Premier League for the first 2 teams out on course. If there are any riders that perhaps don't have fabulous legs, maybe it's an opportunity for them to pick up some points early on if they think that they won't be there at the finish. And with these U-turns, the hills, the cobbles, there is a lot out on course. So it's nice to say that the strategy, absolutely, you're dead right, should be to stack that top 10, but there'll certainly be some teams that aren't able to do it. So they're heading into the first intermediate sprint here. The power-ups are being dropped. They'll get another one when they go through this sprint finish, but Gillick has opened up for Revo Scores. She's accelerating away with that aero power-up, and she'll take it across the line. That was a really good ride by Gillick and a very smart use of that power-up. We saw that last night in the APAC racing, that the power-ups and the timing of which they were dropped made a really big difference. But Revo Scores, they opened their account with a win from Gillick in that first intermediate sprint.
There you go. Good job, Jana Gillick, a Canadian. Boy, the Canadians have done really, really well so far in this series. No doubt about it, on different teams. Revo Scores, obviously a team to watch out here, Kate. So scoring those sprints, 3, 2, and 1 points. Now, there's different point tables. It's important to remember that. We have the points of the day, and then we'll combine them from all of the riders to find our winner, and then we move into the series points. That's the 20, 19, 18, etc. that we're talking about. So that's enough on points. We're going to get right down to the action here. They're pressing the pace. We're already seeing a few riders. I would have to say that I want to go back to what you were talking about, Kate. Were you ever assigned as a rider to go out and hunt for bonus points early, or in maybe an American criterium, go out and look for preems early with no plan of finishing the race, or at least finishing the race in the winning group? Have you ever been assigned that role?
Sadly, I was, Dave, and I've got to tell you, it is one of the most soul-destroying ways to ride. It's very tough, but I think that mentally, Zwift racing, really brings the tougher cyclists out, the mentally tough, because there's so much data being thrown at them and it is full on. You honestly cannot freewheel for a single second. Whereas in real life, in a bunch, you can take a few moments breath to freewheel and let the pressure off, but you absolutely cannot do that in this world because the gaps still open up. We were talking a lot last night, Dave, about bikes, and we can see a lot of the Tron bikes out there. Even bike selection goes quite a way into the team's strategies.
Yeah, well, you certainly don't see any disc wheels out here, do you? And I know that yeah, your colleague Anna, who I believe was directing a team that we had racing in the Americas East out there. Correct me if I'm wrong, but she is director sportif for the Ceres the Pros Closet women's team. Correct?
Yeah, that's correct. She races with them and she also directs them, which is a bit of a dual capacity in there. She certainly knows her stuff and knows the tactics and the strategies of the game. We can see it. We can see a disc. Isn't that interesting again, Dave? Because IRL, you would never ride a disc wheel in a bunch race. So it
No.
certainly is a little bit different when it comes to bike selection here, but generally, I think it's accepted that if you do have a Tron bike, that's the bike you'll be riding. But of course, you have to earn that one with a whole lot of vertical meters climbed. So I think it almost equates to say that the women on screen on those Tron bikes are the ones who've spent a few more hours in their pain caves and on Zwift in order to earn those. So we're coming up not too far now, Dave, from another intermediate sprint. And after that, they won't have a lot of time to rest and recover before they head onto Libby Hill. So these intermediate sprints, it looks like so far the tactics are that they will sprint, but they are sitting up and waiting and remaining en masse because, of course, there's a 35% draft effect when you are sitting in the bunch. So for any of the riders who are planning to have an attack or make a move over Libby Hill or 23rd Street, or even waiting till that second lap, the bunch and that draft is the place to be.
It was Jana Gillick who took out the bonus sprint the last time, and there she is, the Canadian of the Revo Scores team, back on the front. She's going to be really tough to come around as she deploys that feather power up here. Let's see if that's going to be enough. I think it might be. I love this InstaFun racing team in real life. It's a really well put together squad racing out of Western Canada, but right now Gillick is the class of the field, so boom, boom, out go the lights, Kate Bates. That's going to be 2 sprint wins here, so make that 6 points now for Gillick as she's going to take top bonification. There's still some crumbs on the table here. 2 points for second, 1 point for third. And I'm not sure exactly. I think that's actually going to be Adridge there picking up the 2 points there. As we will see, the Cryogen rider, I think, just got him on the line. We'll take a look at the back end API. But Kate, as I throw it back to you, it's all fun and games until you hit Libby Hill, and that's where you feel the real pressure of this race. It's only 600 meters, 6% grade on paper. It doesn't sound like much, especially to elite athletes, but the reality is it's like racing through wet, I would even say hardening cement. It is really brutal. And you don't win the race there. You lose it there.
That is a very good description. Hardening cement. That's often how my legs feel on Zwift, actually. Well, these riders so far, Gillick has been very dominant so far in the early sprints. But Dave, I've got to say I'm a little bit worried. I mean, firstly, I'm loving the support we're getting online for the Revo Scores and the Revo Musketeers. And maybe that's what is really getting Gillick going, because she's got a lot of support clearly in order to get out there and get some results. But she won that sprint by quite a margin. That's a little bit unnecessary. Her heart rate ended up toward the 180 mark and she was pushing out some real powers, but she won by a number of lengths only to then sit up, recover and get caught again, reabsorbed by that chasing pack. You only need to win by a millimetre. Okay, in the Zwift world, that might be a little bit harder to time it to a millimetre, but you can still temper your effort a little bit. We need to consider that this is a points race. So it isn't just about what happens at the finish. And again, the time gaps don't matter at all. So when you are going for those intermediate sprints, you do need to temper your effort a little bit. I think they will be wise to consider that going up Libby Hill and 23rd Street Hill, because they are about to hit the really tough section in the course. They would have certainly reconned this, Dave, and they will be on Discord and communicating with each other in some way. But I hope that the riders are taking a chance here to take a big breath, to take a drink, because it's going to get hard pretty soon.
Well, and that is such a great pro tip, Kate. It reminds me of the old for a pro bike racer, you never stand when you can sit, and you never sit when you can lay down. Well, it's the same thing. You never do more work than you need to out there. And that's exactly what you're talking about, because you want to keep as much in reserve for later in the race as you possibly can. You know who I'm going to be watching for here in any moment now is BRT and the Doom Kittens. This is the team of Angela McRae, Diane Bowman. This is a monster team, Kate. They've also got the Dicey Barreto on this squad. If you look at the top 10 riders based on rankings coming into this race, they are stacking that top 10, and they're going to look to do that at the finish line a little bit later in this race. Again, 2 laps out here today. It comes up pretty close to 35 kilometers of total racing by the time this one is done and dusted. So, Kate, we talk about this course having 2 unique features. We're moving into the second feature, the absolutely brutal Triple Lindy there. You go from Libby Hill, that's the 6% cobble. It's 600 meters. Very quickly, then you turn around, quickly descend back down to the bottom of 23rd. That's where it goes ballistic. And then the race is really on, because that descent brings you to the bottom of what we call Governors, and then you're going to be working your way up, which is a deceptively hard trip to the finish line. This course has it all. There is no doubt about it, Kate. And right now, at this 2015 World Championship course, you see this every single time. The riders are so aware of how important positioning is going to be when you hit the bottom of Libby Hill that there's a race within the race. I heard you this morning talking about the Liberty Classic in Philadelphia, the former U.S. Pro race that, for 30 years, that was just the granddaddy and grandma of them all here in the United States. And there was a real race, wasn't there, along the Schuylkill River there to the bottom of Manayunk. Same thing here, right, Kate?
It's exactly the same. And if we look at the 2015 Worlds that were raced on this course, Lizzie Deignan in the women and Peter Sagan in the men, on Libby Hill, they both looked comfortable and very much in control, while the faces of the other riders were contorted in what I can only say is agony and pain, because this is an incredibly tough section. But it's not just when they get onto the climb, because that race to position yourself well is also really important. The final 6 kilometers of this 16-kilometer lap is where it does get really tough. It's almost like that first 10K, Dave, is a bit of a warm-up. So the riders, we need to consider it's not only the physical exertion that's going on now in order just to hold this pace, and because they're clipping along at over 40 kilometres an hour, and they're going to turn onto Libby Hill now. Their heart rates are already very high, a lot of nervous energy as they hit the lower slopes of Libby Hill in a second. But when they hit the cobbles, Dave, that is when it gets really tough.
And to make it even worse, Kate, is you've got those QOM points at the top of Libby. It's not a monster climb, but it is a leg breaker. No question. You're going to see the lactic acid start pooling up there, and then it doesn't quit. And really, you don't get too much of a break until you go across the finish line again. And at that point, they'll be down to 1 lap to go, or exactly at the midpoint of the race. This is a rider to watch. Anna Rogers, another Canadian here on the Revo Scores team. You're going to see a lot of Canadian flags out here. This is the time of day now where we get the North American riders, and then a smattering of your country women as well out here. I see an Australian flag right there at the bottom of the group.
So this is where the power-ups really come into play. The riders will get a power-up every time they go through an intermediate sprint, so it is wise to use it. That was an early drop of a feather from I. The gap does open up, but that was largely due to an acceleration boosted by that power up. And you can see on the map the twists and turns that the riders have to take before they hit that QOM arch, and they do hit the cobbles soon. But the bunch is already strung out. Anna Rogers is chasing in second. I'm going to put my money on her being able to bridge back up to rider I at the front here. She did go early. She has certainly put the pace on. The heart rate, 194. Dave, what an effort. But Anna Rogers, look at her accelerating up
Look
towards
at this.
I. And can she make it at the line? This is going to be a tight finish. It goes up to 15% here, 18% on these cobbles. Rogers in hot pursuit. I has gone out early with that feather power up. Both Canadians, they are going toe to toe, but Anna Rogers, she is making her move around the outside. Can she get her? I is accelerating away. Oh my goodness, what a ride from I there. She led from the bottom. Anna Rogers coming across in second. Bit of a surprise result, I've got to say, to go that early and hold them off. She has really thrown down the gauntlet there. Compson coming over in third place, but she is a bit in arrears. Now, Rogers and Ryder I have to figure out, will they wait or will they continue on with this effort? What an effort.
Well, Kate, so we saw in the Premier League women's race on Monday, Kristen Kolchinski made a solo attack that had some real legs to it, had some chops. Now, it is almost unimaginable that a breakaway goes away at this point and stays away for the rest of the bike race. We have a long way to go, but here's a factor for you. You don't have 120 riders in this race. You don't have a group of even 50 riders working together to chase. This is a much smaller field. So that increases a breakaway's chances greatly with the diminished numbers of chasers available. Then you start looking, InstaFund is one of the teams that has quite a few riders here. They certainly won't be chasing this one back. Let's watch that gap because it has exploded. Compson sitting at 14 seconds, but Gillick leading the rest of the field, and she's sitting back at 18 seconds. So at what point do we start talking about this being a serious breakaway? Because they're now going to gobble up the top points 3 and 2 at the 23rd Street. There's no way they're going to get caught before they go over the top of 23rd Street. Interesting moment, Kate.
I think definitely they will be looking to consolidate the time gap over the top of 23rd Street because there's still points on the line. I took those points on Libby Hill, and she'll take them again up 23rd Street, and Rogers sitting in second, but gaps are opening up there too. Now, if these riders sit up, have a little bit of recovery, then perhaps they will regroup. But if they want to keep pushing this pace, and so far they are keeping the watts up, it is downhill, but they are still pushing up to 4 watts per kilo. They're not waiting, they're not slowing down. So it says to me that both I and Rogers think that they could really take this. Nearly 20 seconds this gap is opening up to. That is a massive, and we can see the power tuck from Rogers. That is a classy move. To get the power tuck, you sprint furiously and then stop pedaling. It gives your legs a little bit of recovery while also optimizing the in-game dynamics. So very smart riding from Rogers. But this gap, it's quite significant. I cannot see this coming back easily unless Rogers and I just sit up and stop riding. I'm not sure why they would do that, not when they've got this kind of gap.
Use Isabella as I think that's who we're talking about there for the InstaFund team, Kate. So just kind of digging in, pulling back a couple layers. I'm going to go with Isabella as that rider there. Now, so here's the situation. Very dynamic moment here as they're going to be relatively quickly coming up on 1 lap to go here on this hyper challenging world championship course from the 2015 World Road Championship. So we have a very unique situation as 2 riders going clear. The advantage, I think we're going to be able to go back and take a look now. Actually, the men we're getting a look at now. So
this
the men
is
are out on
the
course.
men's race, and they're coming through their first intermediate sprint, Dave, because they're following behind the women's race, behind them on course. So they've got 2 intermediate sprints before they do hit that Libby Hill. So we're just going to watch a replay of that first intermediate sprint just to see how the men's race is positioning. So we've got Davis leading in with Barnes hot on his heels and Griner following up, but a big acceleration from Barnes. He drops a power up, he powers away, heading to get these sprint points, and he takes it on the line. Fast finish from Hodges, and a strong finish also from Kellison, but it was Griner who got third position. So a great start from Dirt Riot there in Barnes to take those intermediate sprint points. They'll all get new power-ups, and let's see how we use them again. So we're back to some live racing for the men now, Dave. And we've been talking about how challenging this course is for the women. It's no different from the men. The only slight difference is for breakaways, because it is a much bigger chasing pack. And so if a few riders do duck away like they have in the women, there's certainly the potential for more cohesion in that chasing group to bring them back.
Yeah, Kate, there's a lot more room to operate with when you talk about that breakaway going on in the women's race right now. This is the front of the men's race. Nice job there by James Barnes picking up top bonification. Battle Royale that we're looking at here as we start again. As you said, Kate, the guys have the exact same scenario. We're going to follow through with this sprint here. So the men are going to be coming up on their second sprint, and then we'll jump back in and pick up the ladies as they should be out just getting started in their second lap. So, okay, another sprint coming up. How effective have lead outs been, Kate, or is it just every man for himself right now?
I think in theory the lead outs can be very effective, but it does really depend what power-ups the riders have and how organised they can be. A drafting power-up, I'm not sure that's the best choice, but that's the only one he has, so he has to get rid of it so he can get another one. I've seen some great strategic use of the feather power-up, and these riders are accelerating very fast, and Barnes again over the top. Look at that snap. He has really thrown down the gauntlet, Dave. That is 2 from 2.
Yeah, that'll dim the power grid there in downtown Richmond. You talk about doing just enough. It's like when you're a beast like that. Yeah, I mean, he did do just enough. He's just that strong. We're going to watch this one come back together as we'll hit the reset button for the men now. So they've completed their first 2 sprints. Just a couple more K of the flat before they drop down into what is, I'm calling it the Dante's Inferno of bike racing, Kate. It really is tough, and they'll have 2 trips up Libby, 2 trips up 23rd, and then Governors twice as well. It looks like we're going to pick up our 2-rider breakaway, Isabella of the Instafund racing team. So it's Anna Rogers, the other rider here. So 2 Canadians. Oh, Canada is, look at what they are doing out here. Again, this is not a nations race, all about your trade team. But right now, the Canadians are racing at the front at their will here. We'll see how long this can continue, but that breakaway is 19 seconds. So it's really stabilized, Kate, right under 20 seconds there.
20 seconds is quite a long way. You know, they don't have the advantage of being able to see the riders up ahead. All they really need to do is work as hard as they can, but making sure at the same time, Dave, that they don't do all the work, because, again, with that draft effect, the riders who are sitting on are going to get a much of an easier ride. All of their heart rates will be well and truly in the clouds by now, but Isabel and Anna Rogers are riding really well together. And Isabel, gee, she showed some really impressive legs over the top of those 2 climbs. It's a 32.5 kilometre race. Each lap is 16.2K out there. They've been through that start-finish line. They're back out on course. It's the last 6K that are really nasty, which will be at about the 26 kilometre mark, Dave. But until then, they've still got 2 intermediate sprints to go. It'll be interesting, the sub-tactics going on in that front pair, whether Isabel and Anna Rogers go for those points, or whether they continue cohesive riding to see who can take them and fight it out toward the finish.
Let's talk about this significant difference, Kate, between having a group of 5 or 6 riders chasing you when you're in a 2-rider break versus 25 to 75 riders chasing you. I mean, that's a night and day comparison, because these riders really don't have all that much of an advantage. They're going to have to be rotating through. You can see that there's a couple of teammates that can work together here, but I really, really like the situation for Anna Rogers and Isabella right now. I think that they've got a better than 50-50 chance of taking this one all the way to the line here.
I would agree with that. I mean, I think so far they've shown that they are prepared to work together. They're swapping turns. And I've got to say kudos to that chase group because we just saw them working beautifully together. Isabel does, I would say, if we have to pick Dave, she does appear to be doing a little bit more work at the front. Now, that is either because she's got better legs, or maybe Anna Rogers is playing the strategy card and saying, well, you beat me over those two QOMs, so you're the woman to beat, and I'm going to make you take responsibility. It also comes down to their teams. Revo scores are in a good position on the overall board. Insta fundraising are a little bit further down the board, so Revo scores have a little bit less to lose and a lot to gain here.
Well, let's talk about the situation behind them if they did get caught, right, Kate? Because that's always something to factor in. If you are the InstaFund team, you want this to work. You want Isabella to get to the line and take the win here, or second place at worst. So that's what happens if the two riders stay away. You're not going to finish worse than the silver medal. Now, if you are Anna Rogers, you've got resources behind you that you can look to, including, I mean, Gillick, who's already picked up a couple bonus points as well. And so it's an interesting dynamic when you look at it. So Rogers is in that great position where she's got strong teammates behind her, but she also then can really look, and she's taking pulls. They're rotating. It's not entirely Isabella, but she can, in a way, kind of encourage Isabella to share what's on her plate before Rogers really tucks into the main part of her meal here. She's got a nice little tactical advantage, I'd say, Kate.
I would agree with that. She does have a bit of a tactical advantage. And back in that chasing group, BRT is having a brilliant day. We saw in the APAC last night that BRT strategically rode absolutely best in field. And they didn't necessarily come away with the win, but they certainly showed that they're out there to race hard and see what they can do. And today is no different. And Bowman's from BRT. She's also got Ange McRae in there, the Aussie. It's a great time zone for the Aussies to be racing. It's at about lunchtime here in Australia, and they're working really well together. They are rotating through. That is a skill in itself in the Zwift world. So let's head back to the men. They are about to challenge Libby Hill. They're on the lower slopes, not yet on the cobbles, and the early moves are being made. We saw in the women, Dave, that the early move from Isabella, and she kept it away with the use of a power-up. It's looking like the same is happening in the men with Siaka on the move.
Yeah, boy, and you can see now. So it's always interesting what happens after the KOM in this case. Again, this is going to be the cryo RDT rider. This is the point where you really do, as Kate says, you don't want to do any more than you have to here. But the problem is with Zwift, or not the problem, but the reality with Zwift is if you take the pressure off the pedals, it is amazing how quickly you start taking on water. But Siaka there has done enough to pick up the KOM points, so that will score that one as top three scoring across the line. That'll happen again on 23rd Street as they're making their way around on lap number one, expecting Kate to see some regrouping here immediately after Libby Hill. As always, now, here's the thing that I learned from Nathan today, Kate, is this position right here, you don't want to be doing this. Go back into the group and get into the draft, because if you get caught out dangling off the front as you drop down to 23rd, you lose out on the slingshot effect that group has. It's as dramatic there as anywhere that I've seen on Zwift.
Well, there's no need to burn those matches, Dave, but you're right. They have to be really careful that if they just stop pedaling, even for a second, to get their breath, they will sink like a lead balloon back through that pack. They need to be careful. They're about to hit 23rd Street. They will still have some burning legs and burning lungs from Libby Hill. So this is their opportunity to regroup as they come around the corner and they kick up. There is a big group. They're leaving it late to drop any power-ups. They head onto the cobbles. It's not long until they hit the banner here. We can see it on map. It kicks up to 11%. Siaka, once again, he is pushing it hard on the front, but this time he's got a little bit of competition. Siaka he's going to come across in in first place there, I think. Well, I'll have to wait till we see that replay to get the results, but fairly consistent. It's starting to shape out, Dave, who's got the good climbers' legs. And it's a little bit different to who has the good sprinters' legs. Barnes, we saw take out those first two intermediate sprints. Now, it is a flat sprint at the finish, so it does suit Barnes, but we'll just have to see where he's come out in the wash there and whether he's managed to snivel over the top of those climbs with a good wheel, because I think this bunch will come back together.
Nice Australian word there, Kate. That's what I'm here for.
Snivel.
So
Yeah.
yes. So hey, so you talk about different courses. Sometimes they'll say, "Oh, this is a sprinter's course," or "This is a climber's course." You know what this course is, Kate? A bike racer's course. It's for someone that's got heart, a puncher, if you will. But it doesn't get better than this. You got to have the complete skill set to be able to. You know what? A rider like Lizzie or Peter, perfect examples. You don't fake your way into the rainbow stripes at the World Road Championships for the elite men or women. A big selection is happening. Well, or is it? A lot of riders filing back in. That's how they weld this back together, Kate, as they start now. Watch this gradient. I always thought when you watch the pros on TV, it doesn't look like it's much more than a false flat. It's a lot more than a false flat here, as it'll even pitch up to 8% very briefly.
It sure is. In the women's race in 2015, this is where the Aussie Tiff Cromwell attacked and made a bit of a late-minute move. And by goodness, I thought we were about to see Australia's first ever world road race champion in the women. It wasn't to be, but it was certainly one of the smartest moves I've seen in a bike race. This almost falls through the cracks. There's no KOM banner on the top for these guys to chase, and they're quite aware that the finish is only a few hundred meters over the top of this little pinch, and a little bit of strategy, a little bit of cat and mouse goes into play. They're pushing hard, but there's no accelerations, no big accelerations happening, because that would be needless. There's no points on offer, and in fact, opening up small gaps to only get reabsorbed by that chasing bunch. We'll go back to that wise stand when you can sit kind of principle, Dave.
Right. I mean, you're pounding sand, aren't you? If you try to force the issue right now, might as well ride at your pace, Kate. Set a tempo that no one, I mean, you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable on a course like this. But right now, you can see that the Canadian Fraser Merrim, he realizes that this is not a breakaway move. Just ride your tempo, force them to come, never make it easy on them. You never take your foot off the throat if you can get it there. But right now, I think these guys, there are no points at the finish line until you finish. And you're going to see, I was mentioning, Kate, earlier in Richmond, I saw someone just the other day putting something on Instagram about that the rainbow bands at the finish line are still there. Richmond is really proud of having this World Championships. And I think it's cool that they will remember that by keeping that finish line. If you're ever in Richmond, you should go by and check it out. But here we go. We're going to come back together now with one lap of racing here for the men. And what is that,
Well, they
Kate?
get the
What do you think?
bell.
30 riders?
Yeah, there looks to be about
bell.
30 riders in that front group there, ding-a-ling as they go through that start-finish line. And, I love that this course has been immortalised in the Zwift world. It's very special and adds to the legacy of Lizzie Deignan and Peter Sagan winning there, but also the efforts that the organising committee went into building such a beautiful course. And it really is one of the most beautiful courses we've had in modern World Championship history. So for these riders to go out there and race on such a tough course, I think is a bit of an honour for them. They do have a nice, easy group there regrouping, but we'll head back to the women because we've still got Isabella and Rogers out the front there. But that group, they are getting closer, Dave. It's only 12 seconds now, coming down to 11 seconds in that chasing bunch. They've got about 8 kilometres left out on course, so they're not too far now off Libby Hill and then, of course, 23rd Street. These are, I think we can safely say, our strongest two climbers. So they do still have the advantage because even though that chase group is coming back, it was the Libby Hill climb on that first lap where that gap did open up. But it's good to see Rogers and Isabel working well together. But again, kudos, Dave, because this chase group, they are clipping along nearly 60k an hour. That is solid work. They are putting in the hard yards because it is do or die at this stage.
Yeah, what's fascinating to me though is watch the numbers for our two leaders here. So the gap is at 10 seconds, but the point, Kate, being that this best part of the course for them is coming up right now. This flat 10K section, that was the big crux for them, getting through that because a group of riders working together has a decided advantage on two riders. If you think about if you can get that rotation going, and Kate, they were. That chase group was operating like a unit. They were definitely chasing well. They've nailed it down. I mean, the downhill gets even better for that chasing group. But by the time that they can smell the embrocation off the legs of our two leaders, they're going to take off again. Kate, would be my concern here. Well, whose perspective am I looking at it from? I'm going to look at it from these two women right now. Isabel and Anna are two leaders. I think that right now they've got a little bit of wiggle room. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that because that group is coming back. I mean, you can see they're at 5 seconds now, but I still think that your winner is one of the two in the break. It might even come back together. I still think they can win.
I think they are certainly within sniffing distance of bringing this back together. And I don't disagree with you, Dave, but what I will say is that Gillick was so impressive in those first two intermediate sprints. And I wonder if perhaps she burnt a few too many matches and just carried a little bit too much fatigue, too high a heart rate onto Libby Hill on that first lap. It's a different scenario now because they've been consistently working together in order to pull these two back. So I think that Gillick may be able to hit Libby Hill with fresher legs. And if she can put out the same powers up that climb as she did on those intermediate sprints, I think we might have a real bike race on our hands. Rogers and Isabel have been working exceptionally hard out the front there. Nobody's fresh anymore. There's no fresh horses out on course. This will be a real cracker. They're not too far off the quite steep slopes of Libby Hill now, but of course it is when they turn that corner onto the cobbles and we can see the QOM arch on the map. That is when we know, that is when they need to use their power-ups very strategically. But right now, ladies, take a drink because the action is about to happen.
Well, you wonder, does a counterattack come? So that's going to be in the orange. Isabel, what a fascinating scenario. They haven't quite made the catch yet. I love bike racing so much, and this is exactly why. So here is the story. It came down to less than 1 second for a brief moment there. We're still a couple minutes, not quite a couple minutes away from hitting the bottom of Libby Hill, and that's where these two riders lit the fuse. The queen of the mountain at the top of Libby Hill was taken by the Insta Fund rider, the Canadian Isabel. Right with her would be Revo Scores. Now, Revo Scores is in a very good situation. As Kate had mentioned, that second group has a couple of teammates for Anna Rogers, including Jana, who's very, very quick, picking up the first two bonus sprints, and they've been able to sit on this chase. More or less, they've gotten a free ride to this point. Boy, there is a lot to unpack when you look at this one, Kate. There's a really, I mean, whose perspective, again, are you looking at this from? Because InstaFund has a rider as well sitting in this chase group who's going to be ready to, well, we'll see. Is there a counterattack coming? But it's like sitting next to a.
We're just going to jump over before, as they hit the bottom slopes of Libby Hill here, we're just going to jump over and take a look at the intermediate sprint for the fellas. They are in their second lap now. And as they hit that sprint line, Frazier is the one that accelerates away. Barnes, we saw him prevail on the intermediate sprints in that first lap. But Fraser, he has got a solid gap. It's over a couple of seconds now, opens up and he goes through. He takes those points easily. Barnes is nowhere to be seen. It tells me that perhaps he is not in that front group of 30-odd riders, which is a very interesting one, Dave. We'll have to have a look and see where he is. But a great ride from Frazier there to take that 3 points out, and we'll get that full leaderboard up in a second to see where the points are standing so far in the overall picture. They've had 5 intermediate sprints, but we'll jump back to the women because they are on the bottom slopes here of Libby Hill. It's not too far now. They are all back together. What a bike race, Dave, and what an effort from that chasing group. They've just hit that QOM. Of course, Isabella, we need to look out for. Anna Rogers, she possibly missed the jump of Isabella on the last lap, but came very close to reeling her back. But Gillick, I am going to say, Gillick has got some good legs out there today, as does Lowe from Penn Velo, and she has accelerated early, opened up a small gap. This happened last time. They need to be really cautious and careful at this time.
Yeah, and then you can see Isabella, her teammate, is the second rider in line. It's really going to come down to you either have it or you don't here on Libby Hill. I was mentioning, Kate, it was really funny at the World Championships, or I don't know how funny it was. It was interesting, let's say, the number of SRM head units that would come flying off the bikes right now as the riders would hit the cobblestones. All hell breaks loose, and it's going to be quite a ride that we're looking at here. So I apologize. That is not a teammate. They're just wearing that same in-game orange jersey here. But so the journey up Libby for the final time underway. That's the Penn Velo rider, CeeLo, that we're looking at. Now Isabella, who won this Queen of the Mountain the last time, is doing it again. Is it going to be Anna Rogers coming behind her? It is. So here we go. We're right back where we were. There you go, Kate. So they get caught, but we're right back to the two same riders. This time, I wonder, do they stay away all the way to the finish line? But it's going to be Isabella picking up maximum bonification if she can hold on here. Last time she did, that's Anna Rogers. So again, it's the two Canadians going 1-2 in the same order over that Queen of the Mountain. Back to you, Kate. We're back in the same situation. We're into the fire, out of the fire. We're back in the fire again as they're down to about 5 kilometers of racing remaining here on the World Championship UCI course in Richmond, and we got ourselves a jailbreak. I thought they just caught these two.
Oh my goodness, this is turning out to be such a hot bike race. Isabella, she's clearly climbing absolutely phenomenally today, as is Anna Rogers. But we've got a bit of a dark horse with a sneak up from CeeLo here from Penn Velo, and this completely changes the dynamic of the break. No longer can Isabella and Rogers get into that rhythm that they got into so easily after that climb on the first lap. But CeeLo, she's not too far behind. If she can just make that effort to bridge back up here, she's about 15 metres behind here, 20 metres. It actually looks like she's dropping a little bit. This is the crucial time, Dave. This is where on the last lap, they opened that gap from 5 seconds. It went out to nearly 20. It took the best part of a lap to catch them, and now it is deja vu.
They don't have that luxury this time, Kate, of that long 10-kilometer flat stretch to chase them back. My heart goes out to CeeLo here, the Penn Velo rider who did a lot of the work in that chase. She's clearly got a huge engine just dangling there. Okay, it's OSS now. Only the strong are going to survive on 23rd Street. Let's take a look now. Yeah, there's no longer any kind of a group. Every rider fighting on their own. That's going to be Isabella again. So she goes back to back to back to back on these QOMs. Anna Rogers now is looking at a little bit of trouble here. Let's see. Is that going to be Gillick coming by her? So it's her teammate. Revo Scores has got two to chase together. Kate, I'm going to throw it back to you. Isabella putting pressure on this bike race. What a ride she's having here. And now we will hightail it down to the bottom of Governors. This one is an absolute Donnybrook going on in Richmond right now, Kate.
I am absolutely loving the work from the Revo Scores girls. And Gillick, she is a fighter, isn't she? She fought back. She got distance on Libby Hill, but she has shown that she has not given up the goat yet, and they are in hot pursuit. But Isabella, well, it is her bike race to lose at this stage. Only 1 or 2 seconds back, we've got Rogers and Gillick, the teammates at Revo Scores. They will be working together. They're in the power tuck. They will come back to Isabella. And we'll have a leading group of 3. And I tell you what, Rogers and Gillick, masterclass in teamwork. They went right by her there, right by Isabella. The gap has opened up to about 6 to 10 metres. This is where it is tough. Isabella's going to be getting those messages up on screen. She's back. Okay, big breath from her. Whoa, what a ride. CeeLo, gee, she's dropped back a little bit. Obviously, those two climbs have really bitten her. Remember, the finish is only about a kilometre away now. We've got 3 leaders, Isabella Rogers and Gillick early on in the day. It can be said definitely that Gillick is in the sprinting form. She won the first two intermediate sprints of the day, and she's gone over these climbs in a bit better shape this lap than she did in that first lap. And Revo's scores are certainly in a position of dominance here against Isabella, but she has won all 4 QOMs out on course, so she's certainly got good legs. And what a bike race this has turned into.
Well, I tell you what, Isabella has a very small window of opportunity here, Kate, and it begins right about now. Watch that gradient number up in the upper right-hand corner. As it goes up, it'll be up in 8. Now, if she can't shake these two here, in particular Janet Gillick, Gillick has got quite a kick on her. Anna Rogers has already proven herself with the second last scratch race, week 1 of this race, but now Gillick is looking to throw more coal on the fire. This one is going to go right to the line. Isabella is a real fighter, the rider in orange. These are all 3 riders are actually Canadian, 2 of them riding on the same team, but Gillick in that black jersey. The orange jersey is Isabella. Anna Rogers in the Revo scores, I guess you'd call that blue purple. She's on the Tron bike. That's the best way to put it. And here we go. Isabella to the front. This is going to be insanity now as the gradient hits its steepest point right there. Now it starts to, you can see that 8%. They make this turn. It flattens out. And then we are going to be pinning it on the way to the finish line. Kate, this one is going to be a fascinating, complicated finish, but I guarantee you one thing. We are going to find a worthy winner for you here in Richmond. Back to you, Kate Bates.
Well, the Maple Leaves are having a good day, aren't they? They're sitting on the virtual podium right now. Isabella's leading them out, but Gillick, she is my hot tip for that sprint. She has been working hard. She's been really suffering to hold that wheel over that little pinch. Isabella, the heart rate in the 190s. She is working hard. That aero power up drop just at the right time. It distances Gillick. Gillick's legs are hurting. Isabella is pulling away.
That's
what
enough.
A use of a power up, Dave. This will be enough to get her across the line in first place. Isabella, the rider of the day, and she will take this out ahead of Gillick. You've got to push all the way to the line, those rainbow stripes. Satisfaction for Isabella. What a ride. Gillick in second from Revo scores, and Anna Rogers following not too far after a good day for the Canadians, and a nice ride from Compson, the Aussie, sitting in fourth place there.
The great thing about this ZRL, the Zwift Racing League, is it's a team sport and it's rewarding teams who have depth. I think that Revo scores, they don't get the win, but with the massive points advantage of getting second and third, is that what we're saying? I believe so. I don't want to get out in front of my skis there, but a second and a third is far better than just a first.
They've certainly strategically nailed that one, haven't they? And a big shout out to the BRT riders, McRae and Bowmans, who are crossing the line together there. They have had a great day. Bowman's coming up to the finish now. They've strategically ridden really well, Dave. I think they put everything out there that they could, and each week they have been just improving. I think that it would be fair to say that by the end of these series, these BRT riders might be edging toward the podium. So great ride from them. We'll head back to the men now. They are in the closing kilometres. They've covered nearly 30 kilometres so far. Frazier, he won that last sprint, massive show of acceleration. He is now pushing off the front. They don't have too far left to go in this bike race, Dave. Some legs, some burning, some lungs are burning. This is a pretty brave move.
Yeah, it's such a great example here. Every bike race is its own story. And this one now, you have a much larger group of riders coming into the bottom of Libby Hill. And that's where we're picking up the action here, really at that, just the body blow after body blow that gets thrown at you here in Richmond. So it's not long until they make that right hand turn here. Fraser's having a fantastic ride for the OMG TK team. But look at all the horsepower lining up behind him. And this is what is so amazing about Libby Hill. It'll sort out quite a bit, but it's that trip up 23rd that sets the table. But you really still have to scrape the bottom of the barrel to find a win. All right, Kate, here we go. We're back on Libby.
We're back on Libby, we're back on the cobbles, and Fraser takes that turn. He's going to hit that 15% mark. That is the really tough part of Libby Hill. He drops the featherweight power up, whether he can get out of his seat and accelerate around this hairpin, because this is where it gets tough. The competition is on and they are chasing him hard. It looks like he has been overtaken by Ivany here. Siaka sitting in third, but Fraser still holding his own, and Fraser Moran coming up just behind him. Oh, that was tough, Dave. I've got to say, I think that Fraser is probably breathing through his eyeballs right now. That was a tough ride. Siaka, he came over the top there. He's been very consistent so far too. And Fraser up there. We've got now a little group of 4, but the gap has not opened up. We've still got about 20 within sniffing distance. The 23rd climb is going to be their last opportunity to make a break if they don't want to come to the finish for a big bunch sprint.
Yeah, at this point, Kate, if you're not in this group, you're not winning a bike race here today, because this will be the moment where they are going, and gone. So Ivany, Siarka, and Fraser. So there's Fraser and Fraser that we've got both of them up in this front group right now. And there's Froner that we're looking at for the tag cycling team. This is going to be the whip effect that we talk about here as they're slingshotting their way now on to 23rd. Here, Kate, is where it all goes down. It's not long, but this is the brutal throwdown. Watch out again for Ivany and Siarka. They've been climbing like angels here.
Well, Fraser and Froner from the same team. They're both from the tag team, and they've shown that they've got good legs. As it kicks up onto the 23rd Street climb here again on the cobbles, they need to put out a lot of power to make the acceleration up here. And Nystrom, he makes it over the top. Bit of a gap opening up. Has he burnt too many matches there? Ivany and Fraser are in hot pursuit. That's Fraser, not Frazier. We need to define between those two riders. One riding for OMG, they killed Kenny, and of course the other for the tag team. Isn't that a great team name, Dave? OMG, they killed Kenny. I feel like that would motivate me if that was my team. But the pursuit is on. There are gaps opening up, but this is not a breakaway. I think that this group will all come back together, but they're at very high speeds, 65 kilometers an hour. We've got some power tucks going on. It will kick up again, though, because that run into the finish is far from easy. It hits 8% in some moments. But I think that we're coming together here for a bunch sprint. And, well, you know, Barnes isn't there. He took those wins in the early intermediate sprints. And then, but he's long gone. His legs exploded. A bit of a mushroom cloud effect happened. Maybe they need to set that up in game. But I think they will still come down. There's about 20 riders left here, Dave, for that final sprint.
I like where your head is at, Kate, throwing some great ideas at us. This is the Audi A rider Lafleur that we're looking at. So this is the most brutal finale. To tell you the truth, I can't imagine anything hurts more than the finish at Richmond, Kate. I mean, you look at that, the gradient of the trip up there. I mean, it's hard to call this a climb, but I mean, when you're at 8%, and that's the neighborhood that you're going to be in here for a while, 6 to 8% for a couple of minutes. We're with Monks right now. Finesse Wahoo, the team in blue, looking to have their way with it. This one is wide open right now. It's Fraser Mom, the Canadian, still on the front.
And this is the smart time to drop those power-ups, because they'll only have one left, and depending on how their legs feel, it might make all the difference to their legs, especially if they have a feather, to be able to drop it up here and take the pressure off. just for a few seconds. But Fraser Moran has made a move off the front, and he's opening up quite a significant gap here. He's using his aero power up, which, isn't the favourite choice up a climb necessarily, but anything will help when you are accelerating away. This gap now at 5 seconds, that opened fast. That says to me there's a lot of tired legs in that chasing pack. And the tag team, they are on form today. Frona was also over the top of that KOM in good form. And Fraser, Dave, I think he's going to ride this one all the way to the finish. What a show.
I've got to say, Fraser Marham here, I think a minute ago you would have thought this doesn't have too much chance. Well, he went way bigger than anyone could have anticipated, and he is going to do it. What a ride. What a way to win. Show him a clean rear wheel as boom, boom, Kate. Out go the lights.
What a fabulous, fabulous ride from Fraser Moran. He just made the move at the right time. He dropped that power up and it worked for him. They're sprinting for the second place here. Oh, over the top there at the finish. Siaka got rolled on the line by Campion. Nice from Campion. That was almost a bit of a photo finish. We're looking like a spring classic here between Vanderpool and Wout van Aert. That's a similar kind of finish. I imagine they've been watching those as well. But Fraser Moran, the perfect timing for that move. And this sprint, Dave, this was hotly contested.
Yeah, this is the Costa Rican champion. Viva Costa Rica is Nystrom. Will take the silver medal. Kate, they always go back and look at the back end API, and I've been wrong before, but it looks like Nystrom is going to get the second place points here at the line. So the win, I think he got it there. Is we're going to say that. So the winner gets 40 points here. Remember all those 3, 2, and 1 points that we were talking about? That seems like pocket change when you look at the number of points that we have at the finish line, Kate. That's where the lion's share of the points are gobbled up. So they'll get to work calculating. That was really fun. What a race that was for the men and the women. Always so unpredictable out there.
Well, we went in and we thought that breakaways would have a bit of a difficulty surviving. But in the men's, it was that last move that worked. And I've got to say, in that sprint, if somebody from Zwift could help us out, I'd love to see how you could throw your bike at the finish in the virtual world. We already know how you can do the power tuck, but a sprint finish and a push to the line would be brilliant too. It was very close racing and very competitive. And in the women, that was really, really impressive, not only from Isabella to take so many sprint points, but to accelerate like she did in the finish. Of course, it is an overall points race. It is a teams race. So Revo scores may still come out on top with that second and third place because Rogers and Gillick, seriously impressive ride from them today. Let's take a look at some of the results, Dave, and let's unpack this a little bit further. We'll start with the women here. Isabella taking the win, a big day for the Canadians with Jana Gillick in second, Anna Rogers rounding out an all-Canadian podium in third, Emma Compson, the Aussie, in fourth, Candice Lowe in fifth, Tracy Moore taking out sixth, Ange McRae in seventh. Shout out to Ange, I've ridden with her on Zwift a fair bit. Diane Bowman's in eighth, Kat Salthouse, great sprinter, but today would have hurt those legs, in ninth, and Morgan Aldridge rounded out the top 10. So some certainly very, very competitive racing in the women's division here. So we'll head over to the men's, Dave, and take a look at those results.
Well, congratulations, Daniel. That was a lot of heart out there. Daniel Fraser Moran taking the win there. You can see silver medal going to Philippe Nystrom, the Costa Rican champion. Philippe, great job. Mateusz Siarka, the Polish rider, ending up in third, taking the bronze medal. Then you see a string of Americans here. Tony Pletcher, Travis Frazier, Lawrence Monks. Into seventh is Brett Byland, Jono Lafleur in eighth, Brian Baumhover in ninth, and then the Canadian who picked up some bonus points along the way, R.C. Ivany, rounding out our top 10. But it's not about the individuals, it's about the team. So they're at work calculating that. Kate, I'll throw it back to you for our C's.
We've got Akin Masuro taking out the win ahead of Spivak. In third, we had Scott McMillan. Chris Lawson bringing out fourth place. David Elliott rounding out the top five. Marco Hilchuk, he took sixth. Ryan Nickerson in seventh. Andrew Zern taking eighth place. Jim Jeffers in ninth. Jeff Waterman in 10th. Only 33 seconds between that top 10. That was some hard-fought racing in the men's Division C as well. All of the races have been seriously competitive and hard-fought, Dave. And what stands out for me, I think, is not only the efforts of the individuals, but how well the teams have been coordinating around the strategy. Because from the very first sprint today, if we look at the women's, Revo scores with Gillick, they were going for every point they could possibly get. And what can I say? I think it paid off. They didn't take the overall win, but certainly Revo scores came out on top in a team perspective.
For me, the standout ride is going to be the Canadian Isabella, right? To go in the breakaway, drive that break, get caught, go into a new break, and come up against a very, very strong small group and win. That shows me a rider with a tremendous upside, a lot of heart, and that certainly is a memorable performance here this week.
And certainly in the men's, it was a little bit of a different strategy because we saw Barnes go out early and take those first two intermediate sprints. We then saw a mushroom cloud as he exited rear door as they went up Libby Hill and 23rd Street. But maybe that was his strategy. Maybe he knew that he wouldn't get over the climb with the bunch and thought, I may as well get some early points. Because at the back end of the race, Fraser Moran, he went over that Libby Hill in a great position in third place. I think he was kind of biding his time and he was really playing a very strategic race because that acceleration he made up the non-hill going into the finish, he opened that gap so quickly. Nobody could answer. Nobody even attempted to. I think that the gap just opened up so quickly. They all thought, okay, we're racing for second now. But a brilliant ride from him and Dave, a very, very tight sprint into that finish for second and third.
Yeah, I agree. Your assessment there too of Daniel's ride today. When you drive that dagger home, make sure you finish the job. You don't get two shots at it. And he really delivered. That was great racing, Kate. I love working with you. I learned a couple new Australian little phrases here. So I'll throw it back to you for our goodbyes, but it's been an incredible day here. Zwift Community Live has a lot of fun. And let's not forget, we've got Thursday's WTRL to look forward to. It's become absolutely, for me, a cornerstone of my week every Thursday. So I'll look forward to seeing a lot of our friends. You know, Kate, on some days, we will have over 4,000 racers out there. I expect those numbers this week. Back to you in Australia. Thanks for having me along for the ride today.
Yeah, thank you, Dave, for sitting in the virtual chair alongside me today. And thank you to everybody, our racers, for entertaining us and for everybody that tuned in to watch from home. Head over to the WTRL Racing site. You can check out all the results there and also head over to Zwift Power to check out what's going on. Make sure you're up to date on the schedule because there's so much going on. There's so many zones that are out there racing. Next week, we'll have a team's time trial. The week after that, we are back into the scratch race, points race format. Dave, thanks for joining me. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. Same time, same place next week for the same league. And we'll see you soon. There's a lot on. Make sure you keep up with the schedule and keep up with the racing.